Hey, what's up guys? This video is for section 3.1 and it is a short version of my lesson. My full version is on my playlist for Algebra 1. You guys can check that out. But here, I show you guys 2 or 3 problems from the worksheet that I assigned as homework, and it helps you guys to understand how to do this lesson. So this particular lesson is about graphing linear equations using the x and the y intercepts. So first of all, let's go ahead and understand what those are. So let's go ahead and look at number 3 here. And number 3, you guys have a graph with a line. That's why it's called a linear function. And you guys have a line. And you guys want to find the x and the y intercept. So x and y intercept, they come from the axis in the coordinate plane. You guys have the x-axis, the horizontal line, and you guys have the y-axis, which is the vertical line right here. The line, you guys notice that it goes down from left to right and is crossing, touching, or you can say intersecting those 2 axes. So when I look at the y-axis, I notice that the line, notice that it is this line here, the graph, is intersecting the y-axis right here. So I'm going to make a point, and that is my y-intercept. So let me label that as y-I-N-T. I-N-T stands for intercept. The x-intercept, well, look at the line again. And the line is touching, intersecting right here on the x-axis. So I'm going to make another point right there, and I'm going to label that as my x-I-N-T. So I know my x-intercept, I know my y-intercept. Now we need to write down the actual value or the position of the point that represents the x and the y-intercept. So for my x-intercept, I-N-T, well, first of all, there's 2 ways you guys can do this to write down your x-intercept. I'll show you guys the short version or the short way to write it down. And then I'll show you guys, I don't want to say long version, but it is a point as a coordinate point or order paired with the x and the y coordinate. So let's go ahead and look at the short way to write down your x-intercept. Now my x-intercept, you guys can say that x-int equals, I'm going to put that right there, and I need to know where the x coordinate is the line crossing on that graph. So I know that my origin, you have an O right there for origin, or you can say 0, origin is 0, 0, is right here, and the x-intercept is on the line right there. So what is the x value, x coordinate for that graph, for that point right there? So this is 0, 0, which is x equals 0, and I go 1, 2 to the right. So that's a positive 2. So I can say my x-intercept equals 2. You guys can say that. Now that's a short version. If you guys want to write down your order paired, I'm going to put here or. You can also say I have my x value at 2, which is the same one I found right now. My x point or my x coordinate is 2 on that line, that point right there. But my y coordinate is 0 because when I go from the origin to this point right here, I go 2 to the left, but I do not go up, I do not go down. So my y coordinate has to be 0. And I'm going to label those for you guys, x and y. So I know my x-intercept is at 2, x equals 2, or x-intercept equals 2. Or you can say the order pair is 2, 0. For my y-intercept, same thing, but now you guys look at the y-axis. On the y-axis, you guys notice that it goes up here. So from the origin, this is 0, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can say my y-intercept equals 4. My y equals 4. Or as an order pair, well, you guys have to pay attention on this one because my x coordinate, not the y, x is 0. Because if I go from the origin to this point, I go up, I don't go to the left, I don't go to the right. So my x coordinate has to be 0. And my y coordinate is the point where it's at 4. So I'm going to label those 2 right there, x and y. So you guys have 2 options to write down your x-intercept as a regular number, x equals 2 or y equals 4, or as an order pair. Keep in mind that if you guys go from the origin to the left, that's going to be a negative number. So your x is going to be negative. And if you guys go down, your y is going to be negative. Let's go ahead and look at another question here. Now, number 7, they're not asking for the x and the y intercept. You guys want to write down the standard form for this problem. First of all, you have to know what is the standard form of a linear equation. So let me move this question to the left side, and I'm going to write down the standard form on the right side of the screen. So my standard form is ax plus by equals c. A, B, and C are going to be numbers. They're going to be negative, positive numbers. but there's a couple things you have to know about the standard form, or a few things. Number one, you need to have the x and the y on the same side. The standard form, you must have those two on the same side and the constants on the other side. What is the constant? The number with no variable. So that's the first thing you need to know. X and y are on the same side. A, B, and C, they must be integers. Integers are not fractions. Integers are not decimals. So that's the second thing you need to know. A, B, and C have to be integers. And the third thing is A cannot be negative. It's very common that standard form A is not negative. Once in a while, sometimes, very rare, you guys will see A as a negative number, but it's more common, 99% of the time, A is not going to be negative. So what I'm trying to say is A is not a decimal, it's not a fraction, and it's not negative. It can be any number, whole number, but not negative or a fraction or a decimal. B can be negative, yes it can, but it cannot be a fraction or a decimal. And your constants can be negative, yes it can, but it cannot be a decimal or a fraction. So look at number 7. Number 7, you got fractions, so we have to get rid of the fractions. And if you notice, the x is negative, so we have to get rid of that negative as well. But the good thing is that x and y are on the same side of the equation. So to get rid of the fractions, you just need to multiply by the lowest common denominator. So I'm looking at the two denominators, 2 and 4, and my lowest common denominator is 4. So I'm going to multiply every single term by the LCD, lowest common denominator. So I'm going to put here just a little note, LCD. So what do we do with the LCD? Well, the bottom number, denominator, 2 goes into 4 2 times. So you guys simplify it. Now you're going to multiply the negative x times 2. So that's going to be a negative 2x. The next one, 4 goes into 4 1 time. I don't need that 1, so I'm just going to bring down the plus y. Notice the 4 cancels, they simplify to 1. I don't need it. And on the other side, you guys multiply 1 times 4 and is 4. Now look at the a value. The a value is the one with the x. I'm looking at the actual formula here, the standard form, ax plus by equals c. So x has the a. A cannot be negative, and I'm going to label that again for you guys so you know what I'm talking about. Here's the A, here's the B, and the C. So A cannot be negative. I need to get rid of the negative, and all we do, we are going to multiply this by negative. But if you multiply one side by negative, you have to multiply the other side by negative. So everything you have to multiply by a negative. Now you might say, well, what's a negative? There's a number, there's an invisible 1. So you actually multiply by a negative 1 right there in order to get rid of the negative. How do you get rid of the negative? When you multiply negative times negative, that's going to become positive. So you guys have a positive 2x. The next one, negative times a positive, that's going to be a negative y. And the other side, a negative 1 times a positive 4, that's going to be a negative 4. Now this, guys, is your standard form. Why is it the standard form? Well, first of all, check. A, x, B, y, and c. X and y are on the same side. A, B, here's an invisible negative 1, and c are not fractions, they're not decimals. That's what we want. Not fractions, not decimals. And your a value is positive, not negative. So number 7, that is your standard form. You want to have x and y on the same side, and a cannot be negative, and a, b, and c cannot be fractions or decimals. And I'll do one more, guys, so you know how to graph using the x and y intercept. Number 11, that's what you guys want to do. You want to graph the line using the x and the y intercept. So here's what we do. First of all, to find the x-intercept, I need to let, I'm going to put here x, int, I need to let y equal to 0. Now I'm going to show you guys a trick. I'm going to show you guys a shortcut because you don't have to do all the work when you're looking for the x-intercept. When you guys are looking for that x-intercept, yes, you guys let y equal to 0. So you must substitute a 0 into the y. But you can also imagine that if y equal to 0, eventually the y is going to go away. So here's what I'm showing you guys. I'm going to put a box covering the y value. Look at that. When y equals 0, the y is going to go away because if you multiply anything by 0, that'll be 0. So you don't need the 0. So if you look at that equation, x equals 5, that's it. We found the x-intercept. X is by itself, it doesn't have a number next to it. So I'm just going to write down x equals 5 on this side. So you guys see that my x-intercept is right here. Let's go ahead and make a point on that x-axis at positive 5. Remember, the origin is right in the middle, 0, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I make a point right here. Now I'm going to find my y-intercept. Mathematically, when you guys look for the y-intercept, you are going to let x equal to 0. But guess what, guys? The shortcut, one thing you can do, well, now you can actually cover the x, just like that. Now, when you cover the x, that's because if you substitute a 0 into the x, anything times 0 or a 0, you don't need it, it's nothing. So we don't need to write down that x value. But if you notice, the y, it has a number, 2 with a negative. So I actually have to write that down. Negative 2y equals 5. Okay, so now I'm going to divide by 2 or negative 2 because I have to get y by itself. Every time you guys look for the x or the y-intercept, you have to get the x and the y by itself. So I'm going to divide by negative 2 here, divide by negative 2 over here. I'm going to make this a 1 because negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. And on this side, this fraction is kind of ugly. It is an improper fraction. I have a negative 5 over 2. So we cannot reduce. You guys cannot simplify the fraction. So sometimes you do get fractions. In Algebra 1, we always try to avoid fractions, but eventually, guys, sometimes we cannot avoid those. Now, how do you graph negative 5 over 2? Well, it's a lot easier when you guys graph points if you have improper fractions to make those mixed numbers. So my mixed number, I'm going to make that here, negative 2 and 1 half. That is my mixed number. Negative 5 over 2 is negative 2 1 half. So on my y, so this is my y-intercept. So my y-axis, right here, I'm going to go down. It is a negative 2. So I'm going to go down 1, 2 and a half. So I'm going to make my point right there. My second point. So this is my y-intercept. Let me label that y-int. I didn't label this one, so I'm going to put x-int, x-intercept. So you guys have the x and the y-intercept. Now all you do, guys, you are going to connect the points and you guys make your line. So I'm making my line here and I'm going to put the arrowheads. Very important that you guys have those in on the lines because that means the lines, they keep going and going to infinity, to the left side, to the right side. The line might go up and down, so it goes to positive infinity up, negative infinity down. So my x and my y-intercept are the 2 points on the x-axis and the y-axis to graph the line. Guys, like I said, this is a short video. It's a short version of my lesson. To watch the full video, the full lesson, you guys can go to the playlist for Algebra 1 in my YouTube channel. And once you guys are there, you guys can subscribe, you guys can hit that like button. And make sure you guys do your work, make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.